Welcome to the Multifarious Man Podcast, episode 702, The Art of Performance, Part 2. As always, I am your host, John Michael Vincent, aka the Multifarious Man. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Multifarious Man and find links to all previous episodes of the show along with essays and reviews at www.multifariousman.com. So, last week, episode 701, premiere episode, you were just part of a treat. I had the pleasure of part one, or rather introducing you in part one to the interview I had with a longtime friend from our days at the theater department at City College, at City University of New York up in Harlem, Aixa Kendrick. And in part one, we talked all about her upbringing as a multicultural world traveler. We talked about, story time with Tonka Trunks and Little People, and, gave us some insight into her background, not only her introduction to the world of theater, but her time at City College, along with some of her influences, and then some of the things that she's actually been doing since then. Now, where we left off, we were talking about her finishing what she called her fourth tour as the formidable General Oni Balawea in Lan Gray's production of the Dahomey Warriors. And most recently, they took the show to Miami, Florida. And she's currently nominated for Best Lead Performer in a Play for the Broadway World Awards. So some really interesting conversation. I'm excited to get right into part two of our amazing interview. We do some more catching up, and, she gets to talk about the audition process and what led to her being cast in the new AMC production of The Walking Dead, Dead City, which is a spinoff that will be premiering in April of 2023. So definitely looking forward to that and excited to hear about it. So stay tuned. After the break, more of my interview with Aixa Kendrick. And it's going to be an amazing ride. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand. I'm the multifarious man.
Welcome back to the Multifarious Man Podcast, episode 702, The Art of Performance, Part 2. Where we left off with Aixa last week. Again, we were talking about her run in the Dahomey Warriors in Miami, Florida. In this next segment of the interview, we talk about what happened when the world shut down in 2019, when we were all impacted by COVID. So here's the rest of my interview with Aixa Kendrick. That was the next question. It's like, what was it like when suddenly the world stopped? It's like, and people don't really understand. It's, maybe people that are in, and it's not the same. People that work in restaurants and things where interacting with people, where being out in public and live performances and even, film and television were impacted. COVID hit, and, people trying to explain to people, how that impacted society as a whole, and why I keep saying, this is why people have to continue to pour money into the arts in schools. When the world shut down, that's when we really needed art more than anything. So to lose live performances, and then to just see, and I got to be involved with, from different performers that were trying to find ways to put shows on, virtually. And to be part of that and understanding why it was so important, it's so needed. So how, when you're working actress and, you realize how many people are impacted when production shut down, when theaters start to shut down, when nothing is happening. like what was that like? You know, those, I want to say the 6 years. It feels like 6 years, but you know, 3 years.
Like, where were you? No.
Sometimes it's like when you be like, wait, when did that? Was that?
Yeah. Well, I was in a way I was already kind of moving from theater to getting more into film for different reasons. Because I just kept getting comments that I really should have been doing that. And then when things shut down, I was like, maybe this is a sign
the time
for me to just focus on more of the TV and film and see where it goes. I mean, several times as I was working with my manager, during even doing the show about what used to be Black Sparta, but now the Dahomey Warriors, that Dahomey piece, you know, I would get sometimes auditions for TV or something, and I had to fly somewhere. But it's like I got to do the show though. I can't leave.
Yeah,
because
I'm committed. I've made a commitment to it. Yeah,
I was like, hey, I'll be back.
Yeah,
no, you can't do that. I don't have that cachet. It's like no, and it's not fair. And it's very, you know, theater is reliant on that kind of responsibility, and so I just wanted to kind of go, well, what other things, if I gave myself an opportunity, let me see what I can do, and not kind of naysay it because, you know, back in the day maybe there wasn't so many people on TV, so that's why Yeah. But it's like you can't negate yourself out of any opportunity. So I said, okay, well, let's see. So, you know, for me, you know, even though the time of COVID, I was on a TV set. I was at Bull. And everybody was on the phone going,
Michael Weatherly.
Broadway's down?
Yeah.
Broadway's what? And we're like, what? What's happening? And they're like, okay, we're going to shut down now.
And we'll try to figure it out.
Yeah. And so we weren't sure if film was going to happen, how anything would unfold. But film quickly picked up.
They figured out. Yeah, they figured it out. You know how to perform in a bubble. I mean, yeah.
Completely. How the bubbles, the head shields, the face mask, the testing, the this and that, the that and that. You know, and this was pre-vaccination or whatever. But because they were just very looking up.
I'd tell you the funniest thing in the world. It's like, you know, because watching, you know, Law and Order or shows taking place in New York for years, and I still laugh when I watch CSI and NCIS. I'm like, that's not New York. That's a set. I know it's a set. It's the same set they use for everything, but I don't care. I love the show. Law and Order, it's like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's really New York. I know where that is. I know that courthouse because they film all the scenes for all the shows at that courthouse. But I just remember the thing for me that I thought was the weirdest when production started picking up again, and, you know, shows, you know, maybe had shortened seasons, you know, where they do, you know, 17 episodes instead of 22 or things on that line. But the storylines where it's like, y'all gonna pretend that COVID's not happening? I'm like looking around. I'm like, you gotta at least mention it. Like if it's a show that takes place in a hospital, or, you know, or again these procedural shows, I'm like, you in New York? You got to say something. You can't. Come on, you gotta. No. And some of them did, very limited. They would mention it. They would mention it, and I'm like, all right. They were told they had to mention it. They mentioned it. All right, now I'm going to move on and pretend none of this is happening. That's okay. I'm good with that. Get back to the storyline about the terrorists with anthrax. We'll figure that out. But it was either one direction or the other, and I would laugh watching these shows, and I'm like, yeah, they could have just done without that. They didn't even have to mention it. Leave it alone. Keep moving. We're existing.
No one wants to.
Yes.
And that's what's interesting. It's even though, and whether it's bad, good, and different, even though TV, film, storytelling, whatever, but particularly TV and film, are representative of life.
Yep.
It's odd that they some things, especially while it's happening, I think it's almost like the war. I don't think people wanted, like in the 40s. I doubt in the 40s, because there were so many happy-go-lucky movies that came out in the 40s.
That's exactly right.
It was because of the devastation of the war, and all, they just said like, no.
And then you get to the 70s, and it was the opposite after Vietnam. Yeah. Then it was gritty. It was the real episode. It's like, no, I want to go back to seeing the musicals from the 40s and 50s. I want to see that. I don't. Apocalypse Now, you just brought me down. I'm sad now. Go back to, show me that, not this. Yeah. But you're right. It's like we want It's like we want it to be real, but not that real.
Not that real.
It's like I want to, it's okay if you pretend, and I'm all right with that. But so it really depended.
That's suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Through TV.
It's like, I want to see the real Manhattan. However, and this is where I'm going to bring to your latest endeavor. And I'll let you tell, the tagline or, kind of introduce that, where, for me, I've always liked shows about vampires, zombies. I always I just enjoy it to see what happens when you put people, like when the world has gone to pot and people need to figure it out. How are we going to survive? And then you see how communities form, how you have the savior, you have the villains, you have the gray, it's like, well, if something really happened, you don't know how you would, as a father, I understand how certain characters in certain shows react a certain way. It's like, I may have not let those people in, and I may have pulled a gun on them if they tried to break into where me and my family are. Whereas, before that, it's like, no, I'd be the helpful person, and I wouldn't have done that. I would have gone back and helped them if they fell. If the zombies got them, I would have gone back and helped them. And I'm like, nah, I probably wouldn't have. I'm like, hey, I just got to be faster than the slowest person. So that takes me to, for years, I watched The Walking Dead. I watched it every week. I was on the edge of my seat. And this is kind of what I was talking before we started recording. I was telling you, it's like how my anxieties of what I can watch changed. And I could see it happen with the original Walking Dead as the show went on, and you got to like season 4, season 5, and some of the main characters. I think where my heart couldn't take it anymore with when the storyline shifted and they brought in the character of Negan. So for people that knew the graphic novel, they knew what to expect. Yeah. And I read some things.
Did you read?
I had gone and looked at, so I kind of knew what to expect. So I knew certain of my favorite characters weren't gonna make it, and I knew who was gonna lead to their demise. So for me, the character of Glenn and what he goes through, and there was one episode where, and if no one's watched, if anyone listening to this hasn't watched The Walking Dead, it's been on. It was on for 11 seasons. It's just in it. This is not a spoiler. So the character of Glenn, there was, you knew he wasn't gonna meet his demise at some point, because when you knew they were introducing a new character, a very important character. But then they got us with the bait and switch. There was an episode where he fell behind like a dumpster, and
he was holding on to the guy. And
yes, and you were like, oh, they tricked me. They're gonna kill him a different way, and I was so mad. And I would watch the show after, because they did the whole Talking Dead and everything like that, and I was into it. Like, I was like, oh, they got me. And I had a friend that was a snob of the graphic novels and was like, oh, that's so different, blah blah blah. So get into those conversations.
A purist. Okay.
A purist, and we would laugh about it. He was like, nah. But for me, I'll be honest, like, and I'll ask you, questions about it. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I've been a fan of his since Supernatural. So Sam and Dean Winchester's dad, and that show was on for 100 years. And I love it. I love that show because, you have a little bit of everything. Started off as Creature of the Week, and then it developed its whole mythology, and it's just such a fun show that you can enjoy watching. So when I say I enjoy stuff like it, probably comes from my love of Scooby-Doo. Mysteries and monsters and stuff like that. Except this was real. So it's like, what would I do and we joke about it all the time. What would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Well, I'd be faster than the zombies, but then you had the 28 Day Later movies, and then suddenly zombies were fast, and I'm like, I may not make it. So The Walking Dead, I would watch it every week, and at the end of each episode, I literally would clutch my chest. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this again. My heart can't take it, and I'd be back every week, and it's probably the reason why people do roller coasters. It's like that. It's like I'm scared, and I'm gonna enjoy yelling and screaming, but I'm gonna still watch it anyway. So the complicated character of a Negan, and I'm one of the people that's like, Rick was the stars. Like, I never liked his decisions. I never liked any of the things they do. He made me so mad. The whole thing with his wife and Shane and Carl and and I'm like, I can't stand these people. I'm mad, but I love Michonne, and if Michonne likes Rick, then I guess I gotta like Rick. So that I had a complicated relationship with the show, but it got to a point where it was the people I loved too much were, suddenly they weren't making it, and I said, everybody loved Chris, but why they couldn't love him in the show? So it was weird, and I think it came as my daughters were getting older, and it's like I couldn't take it anymore. It was stressful, but yet I still watch zombie shit. So let me explain. I still watched Z Nation because it was different.
Z Nation is different.
It's different, and I explained to people. I'm like, it's zombies, but it's different. It's not that it's campy. It's just the level of. I don't know. I was trying to explain to people. It's like the level of permanence on that show is different than on the Walking Dead universe, where the level of permanence is straight up and young, old. It's Gilligan wouldn't have made it off the island if he was on that show. So it's like it's weird. But then I'll watch things like Van Helsing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I watched that show. I love, but then I'll watch iZombie. So it's like it depends.
Yeah,
so iZombie is really a procedural. It's a cop show.
Yeah.
The person just happens to have the superpowers of being a zombie.
Right. And then it's a quirky because it's sort of not quite slapstick or satirical.
But Van Helsing kind of in that Van Helsing universe, and then what's the other one? It's kind of similar. It's where she has the gunslinger, and Wynonna Earp.
Right.
So there's kind of the similar type. I like those type of shows where you get to see the characters evolve. There's a mythology behind it. And I think that's probably why I go to Supernatural and things like that. And anyone that's never watched Supernatural, how many times did Sam and Dean die? I'm just sorry. Spoiler alert, show was on forever, and they kept coming back. And there was reasons behind it, and it worked for the show. So, but The Walking Dead, what it did to my heart, and and I'll just say, so it's like, please tell me about how the opportunity came about, and the new show that's coming out in January, AMC's Walking Dead, Dead City, and two of the main characters from the Walking Dead series that are part of this limited run series. Like, how does one get to be a part of this universe? Like, you got to tell me that story. How did we get to now?
Wow. See, what can I say?
What? Yeah.
We're allowed to say.
Without telling me that I'm gonna watch it. I'm curious. I'm a fan of anything that takes place in New York and that type of apocalypse.
Yes.
That's why I like Escape from New York. I mean, it's different. That's why I like the Warriors. It's different, but it happens in that type of
Warriors 1 or 2.
Yes. And then, but then that's why I like The Last Man on Earth. What was it? The Charlton Heston version, but the Will Smith version of I want to say it's The Last Man on Earth, but I can't think of the name right. But
no.
It was based on the story The Last Man on Earth, but that's not what it's called. And I know Michael B. Jordan is doing a new version of it. I Am Legend. That's exactly it. So that type of things, I like stuff like that, but it's the same. I'm weird. It's like the stuff I put myself through, and maybe it's because the movie, I'm like, it's what I consider short form. I love series more because I like to get invested in characters more than I should.
Oh my gosh.
Way more than I should. And, and I cry and I laugh and my heart. So how did you get involved in this? Was it an audition? Did someone see something you did and send it to your manager and say, your girl got to come out and audition for this? Well, I think there's a part she'd be interested in.
I gotta, it literally was through Actors Access. It literally was through that, and just like anything, I think my manager saw it too, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, we should then just put it in, put it in, do something and submit it, and then I got a message, I think maybe a day later, maybe half a day later, just asking, first saying, hey, you're being considered. You're part of the group of being considered for this role. Let us know if you're possibly free for this and this. So I was like, yeah, free for whatever y'all want. It's awesome. And I was like, wow, they actually are considering me. That's really cool.
So what did you have to submit? Did you have to put together like a 2-minute monologue? Did you? I mean, you.
No, they send you size. They don't. One of the things, it's almost like a headshot or a selfie.
Okay.
You can only get that angle, and it's always based on what you think your angle is. Yeah. And so those monologues that you perform many a time, only that aspect of you, so, it's always when they want to see what you do with their work. Okay. And their description of the character and how it's like, go for it. Okay. Run with the wind. and so that was it. They sent the breakdown of the character and a little bit about her personality and some nuances that I was like, my little Poirot started to kick in.
Okay. First date time.
Yes, here we go. Let's find out. And so I just did a little, research about certain things, and then I did I do my self tapes. I work with this awesome coach, who's Natalie Roy. She's has something called the Activated Actor. Okay. And that is her company and her brand. And she's works in conjunction with I don't know if you're familiar with the 2% Collective, but they're very amazing. Okay. And that's led by Jen Rudolph, who is, I would say, brilliant and often called the unicorn of many a great success tale. Okay. So, and she leads us on with clarity and vision. But it's really about, working the craft and understanding the TV and film, and more like you say, the behind the scenes, but it's also the behind the acting, what you're also bringing into the mix as a brand, as a person, do you want to work with this person again? Okay. Great. What are you bringing to the table kind of thing. Okay. So all of that to say, I did the self tapes. I sent it to Natalie so she can take a look at it. She noticed some things because she's also an amazing coach and just an all around brilliant actress herself. And so once you get that feedback, then I just, I did it again. and sent it in. So once they got it, they apparently liked what they saw, and then I think later in the evening I got a confirmation email saying that hey, we would love to have you for the role.
Wow, that is amazing. I love
Yeah.
this. That I'm excited. Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, I was crazy. I was
Yeah.
jumping up and down. I was like, get the fuck out. I was like,
After the break, we'll hear a 100% spoiler-free take on what it was like on the set of The Walking Dead: Dead City. And we're back now for more of our interview with Aixa Kendrick. To offer you a role, and then everything that goes with it. And then, all right, now I got to prepare. Now I'm going to, what is it going to be like on set? Am I going to be like, hey, how are you? It's like, what are the people going to be like? It's like first day, it's like, you got to think, it's got to be like first day as a kid in a new school, because knowing how some of these shows are put together, and when you have the showrunner, and you have your writers, you have directors, and then the two leads, you have to walking in that there are people that have worked together for a while, especially the production staff, because it's this whole Walking Dead universe, you use a lot of the same assistant directors, the cameramen, a lot of the actual people that are building the sets, the stunt people. Like, these people in some instances have probably worked together for years, and knowing that you're walking in as the new kid, and it's kind of like, I want to go to the right place. Who do I talk to? Is this person going to let me look? Am I going to be allowed to look them in the eye? Because you hear the horror stories from, and it's because it's because you hear horror stories with people, working with this person was such a diva, or this was, and then you hear the amazing stories of actors that are so giving and seek out the new kid and take them by the hand and show them around and make them feel welcome, and knowing that someone did that for them, or maybe the reason they do it is because they've experienced the opposite, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to make sure that if I'm the first name on the call sheet, that, because let's face it, the name on the call sheet, that's what people kind of turn to, and they look to see how the set works. It's going to be a lot about how that person interacts with everyone. And if that person is you need to, you got to get permission to speak to them, and you got to call them Mr. and, don't sit in their chair, oh, you made eye contact. What are you doing? It's like the scene in The Devil Wears Prada. It's like, no, you can't talk to her. What are you doing? But but it's like, you hear about the people where it's like they welcome you, and I know you're welcome in person. So what's it like? And without getting particulars, it's like you're on your set your first day. You know where you are on the call sheet. Do they do table reads first? Do they do, like, how was all of that building up to production?
No. I would say that they move fast, and they know, they allow themselves to explore a little bit, but they kind of know what they want.
Okay.
And even though this is a new, meaning a spin-off, aka it's now Maggie and Negan's journey into New York for whatever reasons, they're still so it's going to have their energy, and you want to have New York and that kind of energy too, and things that could happen in New York. It's going to hold that, so that's going to make it distinct, but they're still the brand. So They're still a brand, and so they are consistent with a lot of that.
Okay.
And so that allows for them to move quickly, to move to this scene, that scene, and to not have to worry.
Okay.
I guess, and so table read, no.
Okay.
And some people might say, oh, but don't you need it? I kind of actually get it now why a lot of times, and actually going back to Leon also is like more of a film. He came from a film background,
okay.
The one who did the Dahomey Warriors, and so our rehearsals weren't about a lot of emotional, psychological dredgings of, oh, I feel my character. It's like, no, let's just get to the.
It's the technical blocking of it. You come prepared to work, and okay.
We hired you because we know you can do
yes.
something. What you do in this space that we now are shaping.
Wow. I'm so happy to hear that. It's kind of like the moving. It's like they've had, I mean, let's face it, that universe, they've had years of knowing the look, how it works, the feel. So they're not reinventing the wheel. Now you can just focus on the character, the living character, which is New York, and taking these characters that we've seen develop over years and putting them in another environment. And I'm excited to see how you get to it, just because I know the backstory of these two characters, and and even it's so it starts with that kind of history of conflict, to put it simply. But now you put them somewhere, and I'm always amazed when you do like for me growing up, I always enjoyed the stories where the two enemies, through choice or whatever, they then had to come to some sort of agreement to figure out how to survive something. And those stories where the bad guy became the good guy and switch sides and go on. So when I see things like that, I'm always interested in that, because they always say the difference between the hero and the villain is like their point of view. The villain is the hero of their own story,
And I think they said that in The Walking Dead. I think it was like, remember, I think Negan said that to Rick.
And if you think about it, they could have, depending on how their experiences were, Rick could have very easily been Negan. And Negan could have very easily been Rick at some point in time.
When they went into the I guess what was it, the radio tower, and they killed the living people.
Yes. That's so it's like, what's the difference between me and you? It's like, hey, circumstances, opportunity, so many different things. You could have, gone down a different path, and it's like you realize, like, Rick and Shane, if you go way back to the beginning, it's like they were basically the same person at the beginning, but through circumstances, and that is just, I find it so interesting, and I love long form storytelling.
And there's lots to discover in this one, and I think Jeffrey Dean was talking about in some interviews recently about real potential for a lot more interesting twists and turns. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and it's it's The Walking Dead, and I know they went through different name changes, but it's officially Walking Dead Dead City. Walking Dead Dead City,
is it January 23rd? Is that the date approximately?
No. Well, the aim, I think, is April.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, I can prepare. Prepare. That gives me time to prepare, because to be honest with you, I need to go back and watch some things, certain seasons. I want to go back and watch. I have to prepare for these things. You don't understand? It's like, because I'm that guy that has to be like, all right, no, why did he make that decision? And I'm like, if I need to go back and see, well, what happened when they? Do
you put on the wall, like, you cut out the people's pictures?
I'm not that bad, but I do take notes sometime with things, and sometimes I think it's important. It's like I watch things in a certain way. First time I watch it for enjoyment. And then,
So you just
the second time I watch it to see, well, what did I miss while I was either like this or, you know, what did I miss? Because I was focused on that part of the screen, but there was something going on here. Because, you know, with film, you know, everything on the screen is there for a reason. TV, it's everything in that frame is there for a reason. Not always knowing it subconsciously, but it's there for a reason. It's like the old, you know, it's like the old thing. If you're gonna put a gun on the wall and you're gonna show it, that has to be used at some point. So I always like when I see things like that.
Reference.
Yes, I was like, all right, where's that gonna come back from? You know, you can't introduce something in the third act that never was mentioned before, even if it was a throwaway line. And I look for stuff like that, and I'm always excited when I find those little things, and it's a different type of enjoyment when I go back through watching something again. You know, not where and I'm not the person that's like, oh, I want to see if there was a continuity error or looking for a mistake. No, I'm like looking to see, well, what did I discover that I didn't realize was going on, and now the payoff is even better down the line. Like for me, payoff is like when you show me something early on and then I'm waiting for it and I'm waiting for it, and even if it's a little payoff, even that's that type of excitement, and that's why I love long form storytelling, and it's because of things like that. It's something as simple as, you know, you look at Avengers Endgame where, you know, where the final battle. And, you know, Sam says, hey, Cap. And he says, on your left. And I'm like, that's a callback from 4 movies before. Something so simple. But, and it's like as someone that watches series and reads books and everything, you feel like you're part of the family and you're brought along for the ride. And you feel like they did that just for you. They do. Yeah, it's like they did it. I'm like, they did that for me. Not for everyone else. They did that for me because they knew I was paying attention.
You.
John Michael, I'm putting that little line in there. John Michael would appreciate that. Yeah. And and when you, and for me, and it's like that's why I've never been a standalone novel person. I've always been series. It's like one book's not enough for me to get to know these characters. I need to know everything about the world, you know, and that's me. It's like I need to, what was their, you know, childhood like? Why is this person the general now? And, you know, why did he not want to fight at that point? Something happened in the past that made him not want to do that, and I need to know. So
I need to know why now.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, but I love to be entertained. I love like things that make
isn't that
me
the
feel.
best type of audience? That's the best type.
Yes.
Because you're invested.
And it's like,
you're not like, oh my god.
Yes.
There we go.
And it's like and it's like when people go, oh, that was just a horrible movie. It's like, I was like, someone thought of that story and did their best to try to put it out there. If there's something in it, even if it isn't the greatest, it's not technically sound, I'm looking at, well, did I enjoy the characters? Well, yeah, I enjoyed the characters. Did something happen that moved me? Those are the things I'm looking for. If something happens that moves me, you know, whether I cry, whether I laugh, that connection for me is so satisfying at the end of a show. You know, whether it's something I've been working for a long time or a short time, where something happens and I feel myself tear up, whether it's a happy moment or a sad moment or a scary moment. For me, like, that's like, oh, it's like, thank you. It's like, I watched this and you gave me that, and it may not have been intentional, but it makes it so worth it when I have that moment. For me, it's that
you feel
personal,
connected.
that
it's a
personal
great feeling.
Connection, and there's nothing like it. And it happens in music, it happens in theater, it happens in film, it happens in books. All
you know,
the time.
and that's interesting how you say that. And because I was, you know, you mentioning those Easter eggs that they put in there as reminders or hints or parallels. I mean, they do that visually. They did that throughout in The Walking Dead, especially at the tail end. They were doing throwbacks to same little scene setups and segues, and you know, running, carrying, you know, Judith. And it was like running and carrying Carl.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Yes, but it's like even the staging and the way a scene develops, and where, you know, 3 years before it was the character was here and the other character was here and the dynamic changed, and now they frame it the exact same way, and I'm like, oh, And then I go back and I'm like, yes, I remember that. That's how this happened. And then because this whole universe started as a graphic novel, they do that a lot where, you know, whether it's the end frame or the start frame, where it's a direct callback to a frame in the graphic novel where you're like,
yeah. See? But it's powerful. That's powerful psychology, actually.
Yeah.
It's very powerful psychology, and a way for to reinforce the familiarity as well as just the journey. To again, it's the craft of the storytelling for film, and then definitely for a brand. You know, it's really interesting how they do it.
Wow. So, well, I can't wait to talk more about it once the show comes out, because then I'm gonna get into the nitty gritty, and you know, and I'm gonna ask questions about.
Like
yes, you got to come back, and it'll be our version of the Talking Dead. And I'm so thankful that I have an opportunity where I know someone where I can ask these questions, where it's like, all right, what you got to tell me, what was it like on the set on this day? Like, what, you know, was it quick? Was it like those type of questions? And especially when I'm asking specific character questions, I'm like, all right, I didn't see that coming, or I can't believe they did it. So that's the fun part, and I'm so looking forward to that. So at the end of this, so now it's the kind of the kind of questions like I've always wanted to ask people, and like I don't know the answer, and you got to tell me this. So your IMDb.
Is this a trivia thing?
No, so it's like your IMDb. Who updates people's IMDb pages? How does that happen?
How does that happen?
Yeah,
you can do it.
It's like Wikipedia. I could just go in and update my. Literally.
Yes,
wow. I thought there was like a whole committee and you had to submit it through your agency and.
No, you just go on and late at night when you have some time and type in the information and then either upload or change some stuff.
So it's basically Wikipedia.
Yes, it's basically Wikipedia. You can say whatever you wish to say.
I tell my kids all the time that stuff. I'm like, it absolutely is true. And they're like, Dad, are you going on the Wikipedia and making a page to say that what you said is true? No, I am not.
Are you changing the text just so that
I am not. But you don't understand how much I use IMDb when like my whole thing now watching CSI. I got back, not NCIS. I got back into it, and the reason I got back into it is because I started watching NCIS Hawaii, and they had a crossover episode. They had a crossover episode, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is McGee from NCIS on here? And when did Fez from that '70s show get on NCIS? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh. Because I stopped watching, you know, speaking of Bull, I stopped watching NCIS when Tony left. So when he left to go do Bull, I stopped. I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. Ziva's gone. Tony's gone. I'm not watching anymore.
All your friends left.
Because I've been watching. I'm an old Jag head. So I've been watching NCIS since they put Harm on, since Mark Harmon put Harm on trial for killing the lady who he's married to in real life on Jag. So I've been watching, and then I was a fan. I've been a fan of Mark Harmon since. Well, I'll take it back. So Summer School, and of course Moonlighting. Because again, I told you I was a fan of Moonlighting.
It's so true.
And he was on Moonlighting because I was mad because he was the rival. Because finally Dave and Maddie were gonna get together, and this pretty Mark Harmon shows up and throws a kibosh on it. How could David Addison compare with Mark Harmon? And then, of course, Summer School, which is such a funny movie that doesn't get enough credit. But NCIS, so I went back, and fortunately, Netflix had everything up to season 15. So I watched season 14 and 15, and then I watched the rest on Paramount Plus. So I'm totally caught up to current because there's going to be a super crossover event of NCIS LA and Hawaii in January. What? And I was like, so January 9th or something like that, because I was like, well, I got to catch up. And so now I'm caught up. And, you know, it's, again, because these are my people. I know how the shows are going to go. I know what to expect. you know, and I love how each show is different enough where they've taken on the characters of their main people on the show and the location, but it's still basically it's NCIS. I know what I'm gonna get.
You're like
LA is more LA. They always have some sort of terrorist attack. The original one, it's, you know, someone got killed off base or in a park or something like that, and you know they were probably on the take, but then maybe they weren't on the take. And NCIS Hawaii, there's like always like car chases and running through the woods, and it's like, but it's so much fun. It's more fun than I should probably have, but it's comfort food for me. You know, it's comfort TV, and I get excited about it way more than I should.
You used to watch Love Boat.
Oh, of course. And Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island would
Scott.
scare my sister and I because they had some scary episodes.
Yeah, they did. But
absolutely.
It's that was the comfort.
But and it was like, hey, look, it's George and Wheezy. It's like it was to see people from your other favorite shows on those shows. That was the favorite part. I was like, I know that. It's Charo. She's back.
It's a cat. Yeah, those are great.
And you know, it was so cheesy, but you knew what you were gonna get every episode. Columbo. Mm-hmm. One more thing.
You look for that.
It was like, wait a minute. But with Columbo and Psych kind of did the same thing and kind of stole so much from Columbo, but in a good way because they did it. You always knew who did it in the first 5 minutes. That was my favorite part of those shows. You always knew who did it. Then it was trying to see, well, how are they going to prove it?
How to unravel that truth.
Yeah. Where in NCIS, it's like you don't know who did it, but you know what was done. so it's a whole different dynamic. And Walking Dead, shows like that, just blew that hole up. It's like I never know what to expect. And maybe that's where the anxiety comes from. It's because it's like I don't know what's gonna happen. The little girl went in the barn. She was missing. What happened to her? And then she comes out as a zombie. Why?
Yeah,
that was season
my heart
1.
Plummeted when that happened.
That was season 1. It was like, okay.
And you go, why?
You rip up the rules and like, that's not the rules of TV. They did not follow the rules.
But they followed the rule of the trajectory of the main character. And
that's exactly right. They were true to their universe, and once you understood that, still my heart. But it's the excitement, and that's why I don't care what he says. I love movies, and I always love movies, but long form, and I think I've enjoyed that so much more than the show of the week where it's the same thing and the characters don't see in character development over time and over years. And when they give writers and directors and actors the opportunity to do that, it's so much. It's such a payoff. And you know, I'm glad you got to be part of this cast. I'm fans of the actors involved, and I'm a fan of you. I've always been a fan of you since we met. You know, from those halls and Davis and the theater department, and you've always been welcoming and thoughtful and pleasant. And you just when you come in the room, it's like you bring some people come in the room, you're like, oh goodness. That's never been the case. It's like you always had a smile, and it's like, and no matter, and it's like you never knew what was going on in your life, but when you would come through, it's like you were present. That presence is important. It comes, you were always present in the room, regardless. And conversations, you always felt like you were there, like it wasn't a distraction. You were invested in that moment. And I was so thankful for that, the experiences at City College and knowing you for the years, and I'm so excited when I see things get posted of your successes and continuing to work and continuing to do the thing that you love, and I'm here for it, to support it. And I'll be there screaming and jumping and ready for it, and I can't wait. So welcome to that world, and I'm looking forward to be welcome into it and just to see it. So thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to episode 702 of the Multifarious Man podcast. And it has been an amazing adventure these first two episodes. Got to spend time with my good friend Aixa Kendrick and talk about all the things that she's been doing since we left City College many moons ago. And I'm really excited to see her as one of the cast members coming up this April on the new Walking Dead spinoff, The Walking Dead Dead City, on AMC. So stay tuned. We're definitely going to have Aixa back to talk about the show, and once it's out, actually get into some of the behind the scenes and, you know, some of the things that happen. I'm really looking forward to that, you know, to talk about it once it's out. No spoilers at that point. So definitely stay tuned. Again, you know, this is the Multifarious Man podcast, season 7. I'm really excited for what we have in store this year. Again, my endeavor is, as I'm counting up my 49th year up to turning 50 at the end of this year, to do 50 for 50. So look forward to 50 episodes this year. It's going to be quite the endeavor, and I know it will be exciting. So stay tuned. Now, before I go, I had the opportunity to see the new Avatar movie, Avatar, The Way of the Water. And I must say, when I first heard that James Cameron was doing multiple sequels, I think there's going to be 5 total, my first question was why? What is there left to do? Well, let me be the first to admit I was wrong. Wow. Not only is it a technological sight, if you're going to see it, I highly recommend it in 3D. But the story, the characters, I mean, it really is. It's a story about family, you know, true family, adopted family, you know, nature versus nurture. It is a sight to behold. I mean, it's over 3.5 hours long. It doesn't feel like it. And I saw it at a local Cinemark, and there's this new technology. I think they call it D-Box. That may not be the copywritten name of it, but basically your reclining chair shakes and vibrates in conjunction and moves. It actually moves with what's going on the screen. So when they're flying through the air, and there's explosions, and when they're underwater, I couldn't imagine seeing another spectacle not this way. I probably should have seen Top Gun 2 Maverick this way, but I'm glad I did. It was totally worth it. It's an adventure. It takes all of the things that James Cameron has done over the years. I mean, it truly is. I mean, I felt pieces of the Abyss, of Titanic, of the original Avatar, of T2. He knows spectacle, but he also knows story. And it is just a beautiful tale of a family and what they need to do to survive, from the parents to the children, and living up to expectations and trying to fit in. All those little things they manage to fit into this story that make it so compelling. And I'm really looking forward to the additional sequels. This is not the end. Definitely go see it. Highly recommend it. That's Avatar, The Way of the Water. And, you know, that's where we come to an end. Episode 702 is in the books. Until next time, Multifarious Man is out of here. The Multifarious Man podcast is produced and edited by Multifarious Man Productions. Your host is John Michael Vincent, aka The Multifarious Man. Original music and lyrics by John Michael Vincent.
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand, I'm the Multifarious Man.